The label XO was founded by The Weeknd in 2011, and as The Weeknd rose to fame, so did the label, signing artists like Nav, Belly, and 88 Glam throughout the years, while also associating with big names in the game like Metro Boomin and Playboi Carti. But as The Weeknd rose to fame and he started pursuing other ventures, we saw him take a step back in his focus from the XO label, a similar route that many other artist-run labels have gone down, and a route that is a slippery slope that could very easily lead to a label's demise. The Weeknd, following the route that he's currently following, is on a dangerous path to not only minimize the success of his XO label, but to completely wipe it out in the future if he's not careful. In this video, we're going to discuss why the Weeknd's label is starting to fail, what caused the Weeknd's label to go downhill over the past couple years, and what can be done to save the label. So when the Weeknd started his XO label, it's no secret that this was his route to sort of grow the Canadian music scene, as a lot of artists coming out of Canada or out of his specific region of Canada never really got too much shine. And aside from Drake, the Weeknd was really the first of his own to become the mega superstar out of his city that he is. And we don't really see too many artists from that area really pop off the way that The Weeknd or a Drake have been. So by forming this label, it was a super positive thing for Canada and for, musicians in Toronto and in the Toronto region, as they could look forward to having a little bit more of a push in their scene and having something to work towards, as naturally any artist, if they have something big in their city or just like a big opportunity within their own city, that's going to be what they strive for and what they attach themselves to. So a lot of interest was drawn to the XO label from the get-go as soon as it launched. And we saw them make moves by signing Nav, Belly, and the 88 Glam. All super promising artists that had breakout potential to really be megastars and have gotten a lot of positive feedback from XO fans throughout the years. The most notable of which is going to be Nav. Nav grew to be a big mainstream artist, while not like a super megastar like his other counterparts that he's worked with, like a Travis Scott or a Playboi Carti or a Future. He still rose among the ranks to be considered a mainstream act and an artist who sells over 60, 70,000 first week with their albums. Nav was notably at his peak around early 2020 when he sold over 100,000 copies. Nav rising to fame was a clear sign that XO label was succeeding and that they were doing something right by signing Nav and promoting Nav. Alongside Nav, XO also signed Belly, another prominent artist from Canada who did see some success and was starting to get some mainstream appeal with his album, but before he just stopped dropping music out of the blue, and we just really haven't seen much of Belly in the past 4 or 5 years. And then you have 88 Glam, a group out of Canada that super talented, made great music. They just never got any push from XO. They dropped their first project, which had Nav on it, and they did get a little bit of push and a little bit, they would get a tweet here and there from people at the label or from the Weeknd whenever they dropped their project. But other than that, we didn't really see them get promoted too much. They had the song Lil Boat that had Lil Yachty on it, and they were able to get that through their XO connections. But other than that, a lot of people still don't know who 88 Glam is, and they were later dropped after having some personal issues, and it just seemed like they had a personal falling out. But when this group was active, they had a lot of potential to really pop off and to really be a big group in rap. But it just seems like they just weren't a priority. They were never given a feature by The Weeknd. They were never really collaborated with too many artists in their label other than Nav. And it just seemed like they were sort of out of the loop in terms of like the main clique of XO in terms of the artist. And when it comes to Belly, Belly was getting some success and he was starting to bubble in the mainstream. But for one reason or another, we didn't see any Belly music after that. And Nav, while the most successful artist at XO, has still been handled pretty poorly. Especially since 2021 and on, we just haven't really seen too much Nav music. We haven't seen him do many features. And we just sort of seen him go silent, unless he's rolling around with the XO crew or we see him on stage at Playboi Carti's Rolling Loud set. We haven't really seen Nav do too much. He's just sort of been quiet in the background, just doing his thing, and he'll have a feature here and there, but for the most part, we just haven't really seen too much of Nav. And that's the biggest reason that I think that XO is taking a step back. They just haven't had much musical output. Nav just dropped his album On My Way to Rexdale, which a lot of people don't even know that Nav dropped because of the fact there's just no promo there. They didn't do the rollout correctly. This rollout was handled so lazily. Like, for being the first project since, the Weeknd's music to be dropping under XO, this is a super lazy rollout. It just feels like they just put it out for the sake of putting out an album. It seems like this album was more of just the obligation of putting out the album rather than the actual purpose of putting out the album, as it didn't really seem that there was much backing from XO with On My Way to Rexdale 2. And it's evident seeing that the early numbers, Nav's projected to sell 14,000 first week as of the time I'm recording this video, which is insane to me, bro, because I'm a Nav fan, but even as a Nav fan, Nav is never an artist I expect to sell under 25K. So, I mean, that's a little ridiculous on XO's hand, in the way that they handle that. Sure, they got him a Cardi feature, but, like, at what cost, bro? Like, do the rollout a little better. Get him on a couple verses. Get him on a couple features. But to just sort of drop a whack single and then just put the album out is kind of lame, in my opinion. I don't think that was handled well at all, and you could see that music just isn't a priority for the Weeknd for his artist right now based on how that was handled. And I think that's definitely the biggest thing that's going to lead to XO's demise, is just not putting out music and not marketing the music. There's really no focus on artist development at XO right now, because Nav is the only artist we've seen come out with significant success over the lifespan of XO. We haven't seen any of their other artists pop off, and they haven't really been signing any new artists. So, I mean, it doesn't really seem like being a successful label is really their priority. It more just seems like they're a conglomerate, or really just a collective at this point. Another reason that I think that XO is going to fail is the very limited collaborations that the Weeknd does with his artists. I would think that as a artist ran label, that you want your artist to succeed, but at the same time there is a double-edged sword, because I always think that any artist ran label, the artist is not going to want to cap their musicians or their signed artists to be bigger than them. So there's really a little bit of a lack of motivation to want to promote your artist for that reason. And I think the Weeknd is the absolute biggest victim of this, or not victim, but I would say perpetuator of this. Let's look at all the collaborations between the Weeknd and Nav. The biggest artist under XO by far, we have Some Way, which came out in 2017, Fire Track. After that, can you guess when the next time that the Weeknd and Nav collaborated? The next time that the Weeknd and Nav collaborated was in 2025 on Unlimited featuring Playboi Carti, a song that just dropped a week ago by Nav on his newest album. 8 years of being a signed artist, you've given your biggest artist 2 features, one at the beginning and one now? Like, that's a little ridiculous if you ask me, because especially your biggest artist, that's your moneymaker. That's the artist you want to succeed, and it takes Carti hopping on a song for you to want to, lay some vocals down, and you weren't even a credited feature on that on Unlimited. He was just background vocals, really. And let's look at the next biggest artist under XO. We have Belly. So every collaboration we have between Belly and the Weeknd, I'm going to list them off to you guys. So we have Might Not, which came out in 2015. And after that, we don't get another collaboration between Belly and the Weeknd up until Better Believe with Young Thug, which came out in 2021. And the problem is not necessarily that he's stingy with his own artists. It's the fact that for other artists, he has zero problem giving them a verse, or, giving them a bunch of verses, or doing a bunch of collaborations with artists that help advance his own career, but he won't do the same to advance his own artist, which I think is the biggest problem with an artist ran label. So let's look at all the collaborations in that same time frame, 2017 to 2025, between The Weeknd and Metro Boomin. 6 Feet Under, Low Life with Future, Heartless, which is a smash, Double Fantasy, Creepin' with 21 Savage, We Still Don't Trust You with Future, and All to Myself with Future. And then let's look at the collaborations between Playboi Carti and The Weeknd, an artist that isn't even signed to The Weeknd, but it's just a close affiliate to The Weeknd. We have Unlimited and Popular, which are both recent releases. And then we have Timeless, which came out mid 2024. So all songs that have been within the past year and a half. But when has Playboi Carti had the most hype in his career? The past year and a half. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy that you start collaborating with an artist that when he's clearly at the peak of his career right now, and in that short time frame where he has all this hype, you've given him more features and more work with him than you have for your own biggest artist on your label, which is, I think, is a huge problem. Not because, it's the Weeknd, he can do whatever he wants. If he wants to advance his own career, it's fine, whatever. It's his label. He runs it. But at the same time, you would think that if you're running a label, you would want your artists to have success because they directly benefit you. And also, I mean, it's sort of like a hometown label. Like, you would think you'd want the success for your hometown. But I think this is just the big problem with The Weeknd and his label, because right now it clearly shows that they're not focused on putting out music, because they clearly haven't been putting out any music. And also, they're just not really worried about developing artists or making sure that their artists see the success that they deserve to see. And also, they're really just not worried on new artists or bringing on any new artists, because as of today, they haven't signed a new artist since 2022. Signed Cherry 22, I think her name is, which is pretty funny because they signed her in 2022. But ever since then, they haven't signed another artist. And do y'all know who Cherry 22 is? Shit, I had to look it up. I don't know. They clearly haven't been trying to develop their artists or, set them up for success. So I don't know what EXO is necessarily doing right now, other than just being a collective. It doesn't look like Belly has any intentions of releasing music anytime soon. It doesn't look like anybody in the EXO camp is getting developed. It looks like Nav is well past his peak. So I just don't know where their focus is. I don't think that EXO is necessarily really even trying to grow as a label anymore. And I think that they've taken the route that many artist-run labels like a OVO or like a Good Music have taken, where they're just sort of meant to help push the artist that runs the label's career. And they're not really necessarily there to benefit any artist. And I think this is a good warning to any independent artist or any artist who hasn't signed. If you're watching this, bro, just sign with a major. It's really rare that you'll run into an artist-run label that is going to benefit your career in the long term. And an artist is always going to have their best interests at heart. So take that how you will. And, if you're ever in the position to where you're not sure if you're going to sign to an artist or not, just weigh all your options and just look at all the examples of the past and how they've gone, and just how that could make an outlook for your future and make an informed decision from that point. Any artist, their best route is to either stay independent, or if it's a viable option, or sign with a major label if you really need to for your situation. But I think an artist-run label just isn't beneficial for most artists, and we've seen it numerous times in the past, and it looks like we're going to see it again with EXO. Just artist labels that fail end up starting out with a focus on developing new young artists, and they just end up being a machine that fuels the owner in the end. But that's just my opinion on the EXO label. I've been a fan of all things EXO for years, so I've always been interested in what they're doing and keeping up with them. And just the fact that they've had such a lackluster amount of musical output in the recent years, and just how lackluster this new Nav album was, it made me want to make a video about it and just sort of discuss it real quick. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. If you did watch all the way through, I really appreciate you. Make sure you like the video if you did enjoy, subscribe so you never miss a future upload. I'm really trying to make that push to 10,000 subscribers, and we are getting pretty close. I want to hit this before the end of the summer, so by the end of August, hopefully we're at that 10K sub mark. I do have a lot more content coming out. I'm working on another video tomorrow, more than likely tomorrow, but yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys a ton. My name is Ron, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.